For the fifth straight season, College Game Day will make its way to the plains of Alabama. There is a storm brewing inside the jungle this morning. Number 1 ranked Auburn Tigers get set to welcome in the 6th ranked Tennessee Volunteers tonight on ESPN. And speaking of storms, the Tigers have been able to weather one of their own over the past week and a half without maybe the best player in the country, Johni Broome, who is listed as questionable for the game tonight. As we welcome you to Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm here in studio E in Bristol, Connecticut. He is Dalen, fresh off a flight from Dayton, no sleep. I am Sam Ravech. Great crowd behind us there inside Neville Arena. Should be a great one tonight. Dalen, 19 of the 25 teams in the AP poll took at least one L last week. One of the teams that didn't was the Auburn Tigers. They've been able to weather this storm really well. What do you make of this matchup tonight?
They've been impressive without Broome, but it's not that we didn't know that, but you still need to see it with your own eyes. And what we saw was the depth of this team, the talent of this team. We saw Tahaad Pettiford, who will join us a little bit later. The star freshman just continuing to come into his own. And a team that's elite on both ends of the floor. And when you make up the matchup tonight, it's interesting to see what goes on with Tennessee. We were talking before, Jordan Gainey may not go. This team needs offense and all the offense they can get, especially on the road. That's where I think Tennessee may struggle, is can they score enough points here to stay in this game and win this game? The line is 6. I would lean to Auburn and lay the points. And that shows how much trust and depth I have in that team and that coaching staff with Bruce Pearl. And last but not least, that building. The jungle is hard to play in, and teams have felt that before. I think the Vols may feel that tonight.
You mentioned Tahaad Pettiford. He's going to join our show in just a bit. We'll also have Joey Brackets, Joe Lunardi come on the show. Jay Williams will join the show. We got a lot of guests, but we start with Andraya Carter, who has boots on the ground inside Neville Arena. Dre, I heard that there was no camping outside of the arena allowed, but that doesn't seem like it was much of a deterrent.
Yeah, I don't know where all these people were hiding to get here, but it is absolutely packed. They're rowdy, they're loud. It already feels like the jungle at game time. Like, these people the signs are here. They got Chaz Lanier in jail. That's what they're going to try to do to him. The ladies showed up. Everyone's here. Everyone's ready.
It's going to be a great atmosphere there, Dre. What's a couple of big things you're going to be keeping an eye out for in this matchup tonight?
Yeah, obviously, both teams lean heavily on three-point shooting. Tennessee, especially with Chaz Lanier. And you saw Tennessee struggle at Florida. They couldn't buy a basket. And with this Auburn defense, Tennessee's offense is going to be the focus. How do they manufacture points? A lot of focus is going to be on their guards. The Auburn bigs are going to shadow those guards and try to make life difficult on them. Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Lanier are the key for Tennessee, and Auburn's going to try to shut them down. And I think with this Auburn defense, the length they have at the guard position, the way that their posts play, I think this Auburn defense is going to make a stand.
The defense and add on that crowd there inside Neville Arena. No doubt they'll be behind the number 1 team in the country tonight. Andraya, thank you so much. Have a great show. College Game Day coming up in just a couple of minutes. All right, so, wow, we love that building.
That building's amazing. Dre looks great. She's ready to roll, but her analysis and mine are the same, and I will say this, too. That's a volunteer saying that. That's a Tennessee lady. That's a Tennessee lady saying that about her squad. That's pretty interesting.
Going to be a really cool 8:30 Eastern time on ESPN. We'll talk a little bit more about this game later on with Joe Lunardi. But there was some other news in the college basketball world that was incredibly interesting this week. If you happen to be grazing across The Athletic earlier on this week, you might have come across this article. But in case you didn't, here is the title of it, Dalen. UConn's Dan Hurley berates ref during timeout versus Butler. Quote, "I'm the best coach in college basketball." Now, the only thing that was left out of that was he actually appeared to say, "I'm the best coach in the effing sports." Here's what he had to say in the post-game presser.
The camera, obviously, I've created this for myself. I'm not no victim, but I just wish that they would not have the camera on me 90% of the time, unless they feel like it's driving ratings, and more on Twitter that could put clips of me from a game and say, "Yeah, look how big of a monster he is. He's yelling at a ref again." What a monster.
I mean, two things can be true at the same time. I'm the best coach in the effing sport. You're not wrong, Danny.
No, you're not wrong.
You are not wrong. So that's okay. And now in this world where I think at times we don't like hubris, but at the same time, we love excessive hubris. Our country goes back and forth in both ways. So I'm fine with him saying that because it's true. I do think from a fishing standpoint, you don't try to show up a guy. You got, especially a guy of his, he's saying, of my stature, you stand here and talk to me. You don't turn and walk away. That's not how this thing is usually done. by the highest level officials when you are dealing with the best coaches and future Hall of Famers and a back-to-back national champ. That said, I thought he was getting to a mea culpa. I thought he was getting to a, I'm not the victim here.
Right.
But then we turn it to the cameras.
The cameras,
and the cameras are driving ratings, and
Right.
they're on you 90% of the time. Yes, you are a victim of your own success, Danny. You're also a victim of your own behavior at times.
Yeah.
It's become a storyline in this game here.
No doubt.
These pictures out in Maui.
Yep.
You kind of cost yourself a team a game late, getting a technical with a minute to go in a game where you lost by a couple points. That's what started more people coming in to follow this. Your success, your antics on the sideline, it becomes hand in hand. I think he has to learn to curtail his behavior a bit. Doesn't mean you can't be animated, doesn't mean you can't be passionate, but realize how you're talking to officials and which way you're talking to officials is becoming the story. And that's not really the story. Him being an elite coach, them being back-to-back champs, and having a chance to try to win another Big East title and maybe make a run in March. That should be the story of this team.
I also think he's frustrated with this team right now, and he has said it.
Yeah.
There's one thing that this team doesn't have that I think it had last year and even the year before, was a Dan Hurley on the court. I just don't see it. Like last year you had a Cam Spencer who was not afraid to kind of he was putting up buckets, and then he was also getting it into the crowd. Like Danny Hurley loves that kind of player. I just don't think that he necessarily has that, but he also has kept this kind of attitude throughout, and it's worked for him so far. And Stephan A even chimed in on First Take.
You can look at what he said to the ref all you want to. I'm the best. But what did he say first? Don't turn your back to me. Because if it is Mike Krzyzewski, this is Lay Dean Smith, Roy Williams, you understand, people like that, chances are you ain't turning your back to them. Yeah. Now, you might turn your back to Bobby Knight because he was violent with it. You might turn your back to that, but a coach getting on you about a call that you missed or a call that you made, you ain't turning your back to that coach. So him saying that, even though he was caught on camera and it ain't the greatest look in the world, damn it, that's what makes you Dan Hurley. My brother, you do what you do. You the best in the business, baby. You the best in the business.
All right, so that's Stephan A, but let's get College Game Day's very own Jay Williams in on this. Jay, Will, look, everybody's had an opinion on this. I know you know Danny very well, so this is nothing new, but what are your thoughts on the whole Danny Hurley saga here?
So, Sam, I have a different perspective on this. I've been very fortunate in my life to be around some competitive pricks in life. And I use that word prick, and I know people might get overly sensitive towards it in our very soft society that we live at. But, you know, if you spend time with Kobe Bryant or if you spend time with Michael Jordan, they were those people all the time. They would say things to you if the camera or the mics are on that will blow people's mind. And I'm sure there will be a different interpretation of how they engage with people. And I'm not condoning the action, but it's a reality of the nature of the sport. And when you have won back-to-back national championships for a guy like Danny Hurley, by the way, just see who Bob Hurley Sr. is and see the way he coaches people at St. Anthony's High School in New Jersey and in Jersey City, New Jersey, okay? Like, I grew up with this. This is who Danny Hurley is. Some people are going to get all ruffled about it. That's fine. You're not for Danny Hurley. Don't be for Danny Hurley. But there's a reason why this team continues to win national championships. It's because of that DNA that he has.
And look, I may put Bruce Pearl in that category too, because I know the fans behind you, they love what they've been seeing at Neville Arena so far this year. You guys have got a massive showdown. #1 Auburn, #6 Tennessee. Talk about a couple of X's and O's on both sides in this one, Jay.
Well, before I go deep into it, just let me state this for the record. And I've said this. I think Duke has a high ceiling. Auburn's the best basketball team in the country. And one thing that I think they have an opportunity, whenever you lose a National Player of the Year or a player as the caliber of Johni Broome, everybody gets so worried, right? And one of the things that happened to our team my sophomore year is we lost one of our primary bigs in Carlos Boozer, and it was an opportunity for us to find new ways and insert new people into the lineup and new roles to expand those roles that when Carlos Boozer got back, we were an exponentially better team. And I think that's what you're seeing with a guy like Pettiford, other guys that are stepping into roles here that when Johni Broome comes back, maybe today against Tennessee, I don't know, but they have a chance to be a way better team because of those players filling the roles. But one key I will tell you for Auburn tonight to get a win here in the jungle is they have to kill the head of the snake. And that starts with a guy like Zakai Ziegler. Sorry, I butchered his name a ton. That's all right. We'll work through it.
Oh,
You gotta say
look
his name
at
for
this.
me.
They're already booing
Ziegler,
you.
right? And Chaz Lanier, because Zakai actually has led the SEC in assists for the third consecutive year.
Yeah.
7.6 per game, right? And Chaz Lanier, a guy that comes in as a transfer, is second in the SEC in scoring. So if you can defend those two players and take them out of their rhythm defensively, that's when I think Auburn has the best legit chance to win this game at home.
Jay, interesting matchup there. Really intriguing matchup in Winston-Salem tonight. Cooper Flagg and Duke going to town. Wake Forest 10-0 on their home floor. Steve Forbes has got that thing cooking. You remember what happened when Duke went there last year. But it seems like the Duke Blue Devils have kind of turned a corner ever since mid-December. What have you seen from Cooper Flagg and this Duke team that has made this such a cohesive and dangerous unit?
I think they're a better defensive team than what they are offensively. And I think offensively they still have a very high ceiling, and they're still finding new ways to score in transition. But I think Cooper Flagg, not only does it lead his team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, not only over the last 8 games has he been averaging 24.3 points per game, shooting over 50% from the three-point line, right? Which, if you talk to NBA scouts, his shot is still something that they need to see continue to mature and evolve overall. But I think it's the ceiling that this team brings to the table defensively. I think both them and Auburn are the best defensive teams in the country because they can switch positions 1 through 5, and they have sizable length, and it can deter shots. They play passing lanes, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for Wake Forest. Now, you have a chance with a younger basketball team, even though they're young and old, but I think catching them off guard a little bit with the way Wake Forest can score, guys like Hildreth, they need to have a huge performance for the Wake Forest Demons to win that game.
Right after Duke and Wake Forest is going to be a really, really good one in Houston and Kansas inside Fog Allen. Jay Will, Houston is 1.5-point favorites in this game. Very rarely is Kansas home underdogs, but they haven't really looked like that preseason #1 team consistently this year. What's wrong with Kansas, do you think, and is it a fixable problem for the Jayhawks?
I don't know if I would say what's wrong with Kansas. I mean, you're still top 20 in the nation, right? Maybe not the Kansas standards of winning the Big 12 every single year. But obviously, I think you look in the transfer portal, and I think you look for guys, you know, like Rylan Griffin, that obviously played in the Final Four last year for Alabama, played extreme minutes. You want him to be better. He's more than just a catch-and-shoot player. And I think they have some role players that need to really step up. One player in particular, I think, is Shaquille Moore. He's been starting in the starting lineup. I think he adds a different aggressiveness and a ball hawk on the guard that has been missing from them overall. I think this Kansas team is okay. I'm not sure they're national championship good, but I think in order to beat a team like Houston, you're going to have to outscore them. I mean, Houston has one of the best defenses in the country. They can get a little bit stagnant offensively. But I think Kansas at home, Hunter Dickinson needs to play his tail inside that paint, man. Like, I'm just going to go and tell you, Sam, I love watching him play, and obviously KJ Adams not being on the court, but he spends so much time on the perimeter, and I know in today's age that a lot of bigs want to float on the perimeter, DHOs, you know, PNRs at the top of the key, making reads, taking open threes. But there's a reason that when you watch Nikola Jokic, you know, Djokovic play down low, he's so good because he just establishes himself in the block, and he punishes you. He gets to the free throw line 10 to 15 times a game. And I think for Kansas to go next level, when you see Hunter Dickinson having 27 to 15, you know, the majority of those shots need to come inside that painted area because that establishes driving lanes and open shots to the outside.
Jay, you got some interesting characters behind you there. Garrett, you said national championship. You know that's what Auburn's looking for.
Auburn.
That's what Auburn's looking for. Appreciate it, Jay. We'll appreciate it.
Come here. You got coconut guy. You got banana guy. Look at these guys. I mean, what is going on? It's a grown man with coconuts, and I signed this 2 years ago. Right here in the right bosom.
There you go. There you go. Jay Will, have a great show, man.
I didn't have bosom on the bingo card today.
I know. It's something new every day. But, you know, Jay Will was saying there, some of the players that had to step up in the absence of Johni Broome over the last couple of weeks has been a guy like Tahaad Pettiford, an outstanding freshman that has been the SEC reigning freshman of the week now. And we now joined by Tahaad Pettiford. Thank you so much for joining us, Agent Zero. Appreciate it on game day, nonetheless.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think I'm going to speak for the entire country. I'm going to take the liberty of doing that and say that it's been a joy watching you play and do your thing this year. I want to take it back to Jersey City real quick before we get to what's going on at Auburn. Ever since your AAU days all the way through high school, you were playing against guys that were older, taller than you. How do you think that has prepared you to play in this conference that is so physical and so dominant every single week?
I just think that it prepared me to be aggressive. No one coming in playing at the SEC. It's going to be a physical league. Being the smallest guy on the floor most of the time, you got to be able to make an impact however you can. So I just try my best to do whatever I can to help my team.
Todd, as a freshman, there's so much growth that takes place even before maybe you start the season. When you look back to when you got on campus, 7-8 months ago, to where you're at now, where do you think you've developed the most mentally and physically in terms of your game?
Mentally, just trying to be a point guard. It wasn't easy for me coming in just being a point guard, but coach helped me through the transition, and then helped me also stay confident in my shot and do what I do, also scoring. I would say physically, just getting stronger, staying in the weight room. This league is a really tough league, so you got to keep your body right, stay fit, and definitely get stronger.
You kind of touched upon it there. I know you're a big kind of fan of the concept of, I got to get ready if you stay ready, especially when it comes to your preparation. I've heard you talk about that. What has been the focus this week? Because you guys have had a little bit of time off now. So what's been the focus this week as you get ready to take on one of the best defenses in the entire country in Tennessee?
Just preparing for the aggressive defense that they bring, having Zakai Ziegler. I'm sorry, but I don't know the other player's name by heart, but they have another great defender. Just getting prepared for them, their on-board pressure that they apply, and how they can force turnovers from the guard aspect of the game. So just being prepared for that and being ready for any type of aggressive defense that they bring to us.
How would you describe your role on this team? And then with Janai out, is that role any different?
I would say my role on the team is to come in, just be the energy, bring the spark, just do what I have to do. If it's making shots, finding an open player, getting stops on defense, whatever it takes. I wouldn't say that it got bigger without Janai. I would just say that it was more opportunities. Of course, having a National Player of the Year on your team, it's not a lot that you need to worry about. It takes away. But without him, just filling in those gaps that we're missing and just try to come out with the win.
You mentioned being the spark coming in. Tell me about that building, though, because the jungle is wild, man. And right now, it's already live. I don't know if you've walked out on the floor yet and you've seen it yet. It looks intense, to say the least. What's it like playing in that building in front of those fans?
It's amazing. I feel like this is the best atmosphere you're going to get in college basketball. I played at a couple spots, but I feel like nothing just tops Neville. Our fans, our student section, they just show so much love. They show so much energy. It's like that part of the game, too. So without them, I feel like things would be so different.
Todd, as the resident UConn fan here on the show, I'll be honest, I wish you would have chosen the Huskies. But, hey, if you've got other fan bases saying we wanted that guy, then it means you're probably doing something right. So congratulations on everything you've been able to accomplish so far. Best of luck tonight and enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Tahaad Pettiford, really appreciate him taking the time on game day, nonetheless. He's dialed in.
Dialed in, comes with some chat with us at game day. And the highlight I do love we keep showing of him is that windmill dunk. Oh, I didn't know he had that in his locker, if you will. I remember watching it live. I was like, wait a minute, whoa.
Yeah.
That dude is electric. And if you have not watched him play yet, tune in, because he's been locked in now. That's why I want to ask him about the Janai Broome situation, because since Janai's been out, he's scored more. Seems to be a little more assertive, a little more aggressive, and he's got everything you want in his game. Step backs, gets to the rim, facilitates for his teammates. And he mentioned changing your mindset. I had to do the same thing freshman year to sophomore year, change from a off guard to a point guard. That ain't easy to do.
No.
Didn't stick with me. No, he's doing a much better job than I did.
Well, and again, he's risen to the occasion. Like the 3 best games I think he's played this year have all been on the road against ranked opponents. So he shows up for the moment. No doubt he's going to be showing up, and he needs to show up for Auburn tonight as they take on number 6 Tennessee. Let's check out today's Magic Moment, covered by State Farm. And we start with Rick Pitino, the 20th ranked Red Storm, riding a program's best start in almost 4 decades, regaining sole possession of first place in the Big East. They rallied past Xavier late in overtime on Wednesday. Dalen, to me, St. John's, it's not necessarily that it's a surprise that they're at the top of the Big East. What's been surprising to me is how they've done it and the pieces that they're using to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody focuses on Kadari Richmond coming over from Seton Hall. Kadari's been good, but Lewis has been outstanding. And when that team's really good, it does start at the defensive end of the floor for them. I mean, Xavier put up, I think, 40 points in that first half, got really comfortable shots. They played in rhythm. They played in the game they wanted to play. And Xavier does want to spread it out. They want to make some shots. They want Fremantle doing his thing. They made them uncomfortable in the second half. They imposed their will. And where Richmond comes in critical is he's still their closer. Late game, the ball is still in his hands. Now, He didn't make a great decision at the end of regulation. They sent it to overtime, but then overtime got himself to the free throw line, made plays. They have veteran guards, veteran leadership, and a Hall of Fame coach. They may ascend back to a regular season Big East championship, which hasn't happened since like '92.
Yes.
Which is wild when you think about it.
I think it was Luke Hunter-Seck's actually last year on the sidelines there for St. John's.
That is wild.
Which is hard to believe. But yeah, they've been doing it on the defensive end. They have the best defense in the Big East. Dalen, you and I are lucky enough to kind of be able to travel around, call games, and do this for a living. So we've all kind of been where Rick Pitino was, where you kind of maybe forget something like, let's say, a belt or a tie on the road, and you gotta figure it out. And here's what happened to Rick right before the game. I left my bag with my shoes, my belt, tie at the hotel. Borrowed his shoes from his trainer. He had to get socks and a bag. It was all over the place, but I think we've all been there.
We definitely have all been there. I'm glad I wasn't there recently, but I've definitely forgotten my shoes before. We had some weird things happen in the past. I will say this, watching the game live with Coach Greenberg in the studio, he's like, tell me I'm crazy. Did Pitino put on a tie at halftime? Because, again, they were down 16 points. He went no tie first half and said, you know what, we're going to suit up this thing a little tighter. And then his team played a little better defense. So, Coach, you were right. You nailed it, and that was a pretty good observation.
What do you make of the Big East really quick this year? Because we don't really talk about it much, but it's been a relatively down year. We talk about UConn struggling. Marquette has even lost a game. So, what do you make of this conference?
I still think Marquette is capable of winning a national championship. I still think Cam Jones is in that National Player of the Year conversation. No, he did not play well in their home loss against Xavier the other day. But this is a conference that is better at the back. DePaul is better. Georgetown's better. Your middle is still strong, but what they wanted was more national championship contenders this year.
Yeah.
Don't think they have that, and I wonder how many teams are going to get in the tournament. Remember last year they got snubbed with 3. I thought they deserved 5 at least. They got 3. This year you're looking at maybe 4 or 5, and I think more rightfully so. And they may get less if they keep cannibalizing themselves.
Right, and Providence was in that conversation last year. They haven't been great this year. So, it's an uphill battle for the Big East. But there's a ton of really good games today, including in the Big East. UConn having a tough one against Xavier. But Texas A&M, they squeaked by Ole Miss this week with Wade Taylor back. He did not look great. I don't know if he's fully healthy or not, but he went 0 for 6 from beyond the arc. Tasty matchup in the Big 12 as well, as we talked about with Jay Will. Houston putting their 11-game win streak on the line inside Fall Allen tonight. Kansas still searching for that consistency. But, yeah, another good slate.
A great slate. I will say this in that Duke game at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
We've talked about the last couple shows, the ACC's weakness and how they're not a great league, and that's not going to test Duke a lot. This will be one of the few tests for Duke. Now, the boys and girls in Vegas have them at double-digit favorites. They're 10.5-point favorites right now. And when you think about playing at Wake, Wake has had success at home against Duke. You know that place is going to be raucous. That's one of the few times all these freshmen have gone on the road and played with a team that's trying to make themselves build a tournament resume.
Right.
Wake, I think, is a tournament team. They don't have the resume right now. This win could cement their resume. So it's so much in this game for Steve Forbes and his crew. Hunter Salas, Cam Hildreth have to have great days. Efton Reed's got to do his thing in the interior, and they've got to defend at a high level. That's going to be a hostile atmosphere. I'll take the points in the Deeks. I'll tell you that much. And I'd like them to at least keep it close because they got to test Duke, and if they beat Duke, that can change their whole season.
No question. Again, another team that in Steve Forbes has been trying to build this thing up. They were there last year, but their computer numbers still are kind of I don't really understand it.
They don't have a lot of quality non-league wins, and it's become the same story with them. And now when you're in the ACC in the last 5 years, you're not able to get a lot of quality wins in that league anymore, especially this year. So this is really their one home opportunity, for a quad 1 win is against Duke. They got to go get it.
Steve Forbes, not a fan of computer numbers. He has been outspoken about it before. So, all right, never too early to talk about computer numbers and all that has to do with selecting the 68 teams to March. And we are joined by Joey Brackets, Joe Lunardi. We're getting you on a little early here, Joe. But again, there's a lot going on here. And you have also said recently that Duke is kind of the foregone conclusion to be the number 1 overall seed for a lot of different reasons, because mainly they're playing in the ACC. And Auburn's likely going to take at least 1 loss going down the stretch of the SEC. What are you keeping an eye out for today as we have this huge slate ahead of us?
Well, it's good to see you, fellas. And I understand that it may be early, but it's not as early for me as it is for Dalen. And, when I look at this game today, I think Dalen hit the nail on the head. It is Wake playing for its season for all the reasons he said, and the fact that, let's face it, a national TV window against Duke is a bigger deal than most quad 1 opportunities. And for all that Coach Forbes said last year about the numbers and the net and the metrics and all that, the only reason they didn't make the tournament was because we had 5 bid stealers on Selection Saturday into Selection Sunday. Wake was good enough. Their profile isn't there yet. I think they will get there for basketball reasons, but I don't know that they can beat Duke today because, Sam, your question that Duke is on what I call a glide path to the #1 overall seed, there are just not enough games that they can lose. I mean, a double-digit favorite at a quality league opponent, like that shouldn't be the case, and that's more a comment on the ACC than it is on the Blue Devils. I'm fairly certain we're going to see Duke #1 of 1 on Selection Sunday night.
Joe, just so the folks know, alluding to it, I saw you at the Philadelphia airport. You dropped me off at the Hertz rental car around 1 a.m. this morning.
Team player.
We've driven ourselves home. We've gotten showered, and now we are here in Bristol. So thank you for that, sir. I like
you
that.
bet.
Yeah, you're the man. I want to ask you like directed questions sometimes, but I feel like sometimes it gives you just the canvas to say, what games are you most focused on outside of that Duke game? What has biggest implications for your mind as it relates to the bracket as we sit in the end of January?
Yeah, you have to talk about the marquee game tonight between Tennessee and Auburn. I mean, Auburn, I think, has lapped the field as the best team in the country, both, the eye test and the numbers. But eventually, against a quality opponent, when you're missing arguably the National Player of the Year, it's going to cost you. I don't know that it will cost them tonight, but it could because Tennessee is so good defensively. It's probably a more important game for the Vols because they have an opportunity to get their 1 seed back. They're behind Alabama. They're behind Iowa State right now, and, of course, Duke and Auburn at the very top. So that's a game. And then I've been keeping my eye on Texas. It's hard not to keep your eye on these quote-unquote down-ballot games in the SEC because there's so many good teams. Texas, one of the last 4 in as we start a very busy Saturday, and they won't hold that spot unless they're able to win at home. A&M, pretty good road trip thus far, escaping Ole Miss the other night and cementing for themselves a top 4 seed. So that, among many, if you can't decide which channel to watch on a busy Saturday, the SEC is probably not a bad place to start.
No, it's not a bad place to start. And let's continue on that conversation, too, because it's no secret the SEC is the best basketball conference in the country this year. And on the verge of breaking some history come selection time. But when you look at the SEC and the competition that is there every single week, Joe, is it likely that they do break that Big East record?
I think it is, and I understand all of the beating one another up and taking on extra losses, but the committee has proven that in evaluating quad 1 records of teams, they're as much interested in quantity as quality. We once saw Trae Young and Oklahoma get in with a 4-11 record in quad 1 and a 7-11 record in the Big 12. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for most of the middle teams in the SEC. Texas is actually the 13th team in the field as we begin play today. Now, I don't think it's going to be that high, but I do think it will tie or crack the record of 11 teams from the Big East back in 2011. And Dalen, I'll just say this. I don't think Texas is a Final Four team, but they have players. And if you're the 13th best team in the league as Texas, it's a pretty good league.
Yeah, pretty good. They got tough shot takers, but tough shot makers in Kaluma and, of course, Trey Johnson. When those guys are scoring, they're some of the most fun guys to watch in the country, and they can beat anybody.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
No question. And
go ahead, Joe.
The bottom for the SEC, I don't know, 9 bids, 10 bids, it's still going to be that. They're going to be counting a lot of units in Birmingham.
Yeah. I think the question is going to be when they come to March, do they have? It's a war of attrition. Like how many bodies are going to be healthy? Because it is a war at the rim every single game in the SEC. Joe, really appreciate you hopping on with us here early. We'll get you plenty of times before we get to March. I guarantee you that.
You know it. Thanks, guys.
All right. So, and again, like the SEC, we talk about it all the time. This is a conference that is beating each other up every single week, but the talent is there, and it speaks for itself, I think.
It does, and the wins are going to speak for themselves as well. In the non-league, which they made a ton of noise, and they're going to, when you have those opportunities to have so many quad one wins and so many on your home floor, I think we're looking at 12 bids.
Yeah.
I think they're going to break the Big East record. I think it's a better league because the bottom of that league is still a battle.
Still
you
really
had
good.
DePaul and Rutgers and USF, teams that really weren't that good in 2011. This they don't have.
No. We also don't have any more time. So how about that? This has been a great show. We got a ton of guests that we got through. I really appreciate everybody hopping on with us. Thank you so much for watching Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. Head on over to ESPN to catch College Game Day leading into Tennessee and Auburn.